Welcome everyone to this module. I am so glad you're here. And today, this module is going to be not as in depth as the last two, because I know those last two were really big, like emotional suppression and our triggers. Today, we're going to jump into family relationships. Now, as we look at the shadow part of us, we have to identify what those relationships look like with our family. What is it that when you think about your family, because our family members are the people that we were born to be with. And there's this saying that, oh, well, that's family. You just need to, ignore what they do. No, we do not. I have family members that I don't talk to anymore because they were toxic, they were abusive, and I just refuse to deal with them. I don't care if they're family or not. And so that's something I want to stress here. Just because someone is family doesn't mean that you have to deal with the disrespect, the abuse. You do not. You are in charge of you. And if these individuals are not individuals that are good for you, that are safe for you, then remove yourself from that situation. Okay. Now, when you do this, and I'm saying this in a way of when you're doing this, if you choose that, you know what, these people are not safe for me, I encourage you to do a lot of forgiveness is making sure that you are doing the forgiveness exercises. Because if they continue to control you, then you're going to continue to harbor these feelings of regrets and rejection and resentments and all of that. And you don't want that. Okay. Because here's the thing, as you start to heal you, it does roll out into your relationships. You'll start to see relationships starting to tighten because you start to realize that as you're healing you, that you see that other people, they're living a messed up life too. They're dealing with their traumas. And what you realize is some of the things that you're experiencing from them is coming from a hurt, broken part of them. Okay. All right. So one of the things that I would challenge you to do, and I know you've probably done this before in other classes that I've taught, is when you look at your family members, I want you to look at what it is about them that you love. So take a look at your members, the people that are part of your family, that, it could be your mother, your father, your grandparents, your sisters, your brothers, your cousins, like anyone that is close to you. And I want you to sit down and I want you to label who they are. What are the things that you admire about them? And then what are the things that you dislike about them? And when you do those things, then I want you to take a look at it and say to yourself, what about their qualities? Where are they at within me? For example, if I look at certain family members, there are things that I see in them, right? Are things that, like for example, one of my family members, they take on a lot. Like they don't trust people. They feel like they have to do everything themselves and they don't want to ask people for help, but yet they feel like no one cares about them, no one loves them, no one wants to help them. And so when I look at those qualities, I then turn that mirror around on me and say, okay, where do you do these same things at? Because typically when we start to identify things that we don't like in people, they're also within us too, which is why we can find it. Okay. Now, it might not be, so let me make sure I'm very clear with this. It might not be the same exact thing. Meaning, if you're around someone that's very narcissistic and how they gaslight people and how they do certain things and how they harm people, that may not be you. Okay. Not saying that you have the identical thing, but then you can turn around and look at yourself and say, okay, are there times when I gaslight people to get my way for a particular thing? Are there times where I may not be as honest, or I have a motive behind it that is, I'm not disclosing that they may, to get the things that I want? So those are how I'm saying, look at this, not look at it and say, oh, well, I'm the same type of person. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, take a look at it and identify where you may be doing some of those things. And the reason I want you to do the positive things as well is because oftentimes those positive attributes are within you as well. It's just you're not seeing them. So if there's something that is positive about them, turn that question around and say, okay, where have I had this particular quality at in my life? Okay, so like I'll use an example. My husband, he is the most consistent and disciplined person I've ever met in my life, right? And I used to, I don't want to use the word envy, but I started studying him because I wanted to be disciplined and consistent. But before I could do that, I had to step away and say, okay, where are there things that you're consistent and disciplined about? And what is the underlying reason of why you're so consistent and disciplined about those things? Because what it is oftentimes when we see things that other people are doing, they're consistent and disciplined about it because it means so much to them. And the things that I was not consistent and disciplined about were things that weren't necessarily, I didn't view as important. But then once I stood back and said, okay, and I'll give an example with me and working out and being healthy. It took me a very long time to get disciplined and consistent, but I had to realize my health was the most important thing. I had to buy in to the outcome that I wanted, meaning I wanted to be healthy. That had to be a priority to me. So sometimes when we lack the discipline and consistency, it's not necessarily that we're just, I will use the word I used to call myself, lazy. It's just I didn't see the true value in the things that I was not being disciplined and consistent with. I didn't see it was important to me. Or if I did see it was important, I felt like it was going to be too hard, or I didn't feel like I had enough education about it, or I didn't know what I was doing. And so when I removed those obstacles and blockages out of the way and really dug into myself, like me being healthy is the most important thing I can do for myself, then it became a priority. Then the discipline showed up and the consistency showed up because I reminded myself how important it was for me to be healthy and what being healthy looked like. Okay. So I want you to take your time on this section and really focus on the positives and the things that you don't like, and then figure out ways that those things are related into you. Okay. And then as you do that, show yourself some grace and some compassion and some love and some forgiveness, and do all those things to the person as well. To have those conversations within yourself, like visualize that person standing in front of you, say all the things that you need to say to them, then forgive them at the end. Show them some grace and compassion. Okay. All right. I love you guys, and I will see you on our next module.